A dramatic and high-stake escalation has redefined the battle lines in Europe as a new hardline coalition of German and British leadership has emerged to fill the vacuum left by American ambivalence and Franco-Italian dissent. In a joint press conference in Berlin that signaled a radical departure from their predecessors' caution, new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced their nations would be supplying Ukraine with the most advanced long-range missiles. Even more stunningly, they declared their intent to deploy a limited contingent of specialized ground personnel to Ukraine to provide training, maintenance, and logistical support for these complex new systems. These momentous decisions cross a red line that Russia has repeatedly warned would constitute direct NATO involvement, pushing the continent to the precipice of a full-scale war while completely isolating the de-escalation camp led by France and Italy. The specific weapons being sent represent a quantum leap in Ukraine's offensive capabilities. Germany has pledged to deliver its Taurus cruise missile, a sophisticated bunker buster weapon known for its long range and its ability to penetrate current targets. The United Kingdom will be sending a new consignment of its Storm Shadow missiles, which have already proven effective in previous strikes. Unlike earlier deliveries, which came with strict restriction against their use on Russian territory, Merz and Starmer made it clear that these new systems would come with strategic autonomy for Kyiv. Ukraine is a sovereign nation fighting a defensive war against an illegal aggressor. Chancellor Merz stated firmly, "It is not for us in Berlin or London to dictate to the Ukrainian military how they should defend their own country. They must have the ability to strike the logistical and command centers that are fueling this war. Wherever those centers may be, this statement was an explicit green light for Ukraine to strike deep within Russia's internationally recognized borders." The decision to deploy ground personnel, however carefully phrased, is the most explosive element of the announcement. Prime Minister Starmer was precise in his language, stressing that these were not combat troops. "Let me be absolutely clear," Starmer said. "British soldiers will not be engaged in combat operations that will operate far from the front lines to ensure that the vital equipment we are providing can be used effectively and maintained properly by our Ukrainian partners. This is a training and assistance mission." Despite this careful framing, the presence of uniformed British and German soldiers on Ukrainian soil is a monumental escalation. It creates the very real possibility of a direct clash, accidental or otherwise, between NATO member state troops and the Russian military, a scenario that could trigger Article 5 and plunge the entire alliance into war. This new Berlin-London axis represents a profound political realignment in Europe. In Germany, Chancellor Friedrich Merz, leading a new conservative government, has completely reversed the caution, trade-focused foreign policy that defined his country for decades. His ascendance marked the final death of the old German belief that economic interdependence could ensure peace with Russia. Merz, a staunch Atlanticist with a deep-seated skepticism of Moscow, has aligned himself with the hawkish wing of his party. In his address, he spoke of a historic duty to stand against tyranny. Twice in the last century, Germany has brought unimaginable suffering to this continent, Merz said, his voice resonating with historical weight. "We have a solemn obligation now to stand on the right side of history, to defend the international order, and to ensure that brute force is never again allowed to triumph in Europe. Our prosperity is meaningless without security, and our security is inextricably linked to the survival of a free Ukraine." In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour government has defied all expectations of a more dovish foreign policy. Starmer has instead embraced a muscular interventionism, seeking to position a post-Brexit Britain as Europe's indispensable security leader. With the United States stepping back under President Trump, Starmer sees a historic opportunity for Britain to reassert its influence. He has calculated that by taking the lead in confronting Russia, he can forge a new role for global Britain as the primary guarantor of European security, thereby strengthening his political standing at home and his country's diplomatic clout abroad. The security of the United Kingdom is not negotiated in the hall of Washington or Brussels. Starmer declared, it is forged here in Europe. We will not stand idly by while a sovereign democracy is extinguished. Britain will lead. We will provide the means for Ukraine to win, and we will not flinch. The reaction from the Trump administration in Washington was swift and furious. President Donald Trump viewed the German-British move as a direct and reckless challenge to his America First agenda of de-escalation and disengagement. In an early morning social media tirade, he threatened to fundamentally reassess America's commitment to NATO. Crazy Merch and Starmer are trying to drag us all into World War III for a country that means nothing to us, Trump posted. They send missiles. Then they send troops. And next, they will be begging for American soldiers to come and save them. It's not going to happen. If they want to start a world war, they can do it on their own. We are getting out. NATO has to pay up or the US is out. This was not just rhetorical bluster. The threat was immediately followed by a formal policy statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. While not threatening a full withdrawal, Rubio announced that the United States was placing all of its NATO commitments under immediate and comprehensive review. He stated the unilateral and reckless decision by Berlin and London to deploy military personnel to a non-treaty combat zone has fundamentally altered the security landscape and has placed American forces in Europe at unacceptable risk. We will not be party to an escalation that we did not approve and that runs directly contrary to the national interests of the United States. Our allies have made their choice and the United States will now make its own. This statement effectively puts Article 5 on notice, suggesting that if Russia retaliates against the British and German personnel in Ukraine, the US might not consider it an automatic trigger for a collective response. The administration's other key figure reinforced this message of strategic detachment. Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth ordered the Pentagon to begin drawing up plans for a significant drawdown of US troops stationed in Germany. He argued that if Germany was willing to act so independently and recklessly, it no longer needed a large American military presence for its defense. Our forces are not a tripwire to be used by other nations to start conflicts, Hegseth said. Meanwhile, Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Ratcliffe, authorized the release of intelligence assessment that highlighted the extreme risk of the new European strategy. The declassified report warned that Russia would view the presence of NATO troops as a de facto invasion and was highly likely to respond with overwhelming force against the locations where those personnel were based, making a direct NATO-Russia clash almost inevitable. This has left Europe more fractured and volatile than at any time since the end of the Cold War. There are now three distinct and openly hostile camps within the Western Alliance. The first is the peace camp, led by France and Italy, which is calling for an immediate ceasefire and is now completely marginalized by the new escalation. President Macron and Prime Minister Meloni issued a joint statement expressing their grave concern over the German-British decision, warning it was a point of no return that made a diplomatic solution impossible. The second is the isolationist camp, embodied by the Trump administration, which is actively withdrawing from the conflict and using the European infighting to justify its disengagement. The third camp is the New War Coalition, led by Germany and the United Kingdom, and enthusiastically supported by the talent-packed nations of Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This group believes that the only way to secure Europe is through a decisive military defeat of Russia, and they are now willing to risk a direct continental war to achieve it. The deployment of long-range missiles and ground personnel is their opening gambit in a strategy of high-risk brinkmanship. They are gambling that Russian President Vladimir Putin is bluffing and that he will back down in the face of this new, determined opposition. It is a gamble for the highest possible stakes, with the future of Europe hanging in the balance, and they are making it without the support of their most powerful traditional ally. The continent is now on a knife edge, caught between collapsing states, fractured alliance, and the looming shadow of a great power war. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to Sokhane Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That is why. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.